Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Hey, Marianne. Hey, Justin. Hey, Megan. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good.
Beautiful
Awesome.
day.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful
enjoying
here in New
the-
York City.
Yep.
Just before we dive in, I'm George Dowderman, and this is our team from Valiant. This is our live stream we do weekly. Usually we talk about important topics around IT and business, a bunch of different things. Sometimes it gets a little out of control, but we'll see. We'll try to contain it today. But if you haven't, really appreciate everyone who watches, who comments, and like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and some of our other social. It's really important. We love feedback. We have some links here. If you have questions, we love answering them. A lot of these streams come out of questions we get from our clients, questions we get internally, and from some of our comments online. But before we dive into our topic of mid-year review and tracking some progress, I'm going to hand it over to Marianne to talk about some tech bites. So Marianne, take it away.
Cool. So being with the theme of how much insight we get from our clients and our viewers and stuff like that, I thought for this tech bite we would go over some questions on some previous videos we've had. Some of them are live streams, some of them are knowledge-based type of videos that we have on our YouTube page. But yeah, so there's a couple I wanted to review. The first one is how to pin a video in Zoom. So, I mean, if you've used Zoom, there's a way that you can pin just one person's video and it'll be front and center for everyone to see. And I was asked more than once by people, and I think I even specified in the video, but it's really important for people to know, if you pin a video, can that person tell that you pinned their video? And fortunately for Zoom, the answer is no. So if you're pinning a video, it's just for your purposes. It's just for your view. They're not going to get a video that's like, someone really wants to see your video. It's not like that. And I know that specifically one person said, is this like in Snapchat where it sends them a notification? Even if you're working in Teams video, if you do Spotlight video, it actually spotlights it for everybody. But Zoom is just your view. So please feel free to pin that video. And if you want to know how, check out the link at the bottom. The second one I got that we get a lot of questions about, we did this live stream on OneDrive tips and tricks. And we talked about managing your shared links and who can access your files. One of the things we did was how you can, cancel a link. You can just delete a link and people can't access using that link anymore. So that's sort of what it looks like right here. There's a couple of links. You can easily turn them off. And someone asked if there was a way to easily delete all the links. Unfortunately, there isn't a really easy one-click way, but there definitely is a way. And for that, I'm going to bring up my screen and share that with you. So share my screen, clicking on this one. And there we go. So this is actually what you saw in that still before. I'm going to look at this shared folder, click Manage Access, and here are the bunch of links. Now, if you have to cancel them one at a time to delete them, which is, if you have a bunch of links, that kind of stinks. But if you go at the very bottom, there's Advanced Access, so you can manage your access through the Advanced section. And that brings up this. And a lot of this can be confusing, but for what that person asked for, very specifically, if you click in the very top, Delete Unique Permissions, what that does is it gets rid of all of the things that you sent out, all the links, all the, this one person can access it, and it just returns it all to the parent folder. So if the folder containing this file or folders says that, these people can access it, that's what it's going to default to. So if I click that, it's going to give me a warning. And then all my links are going to be gone when it's done. It's taking a second to load. Here. Manage access, and there are no more links.
Cool.
So it is kind of quick, but it's just, if you don't notice this tiny little advanced at the bottom, you might not know.
That's very cool. That's super useful, especially when you start using OneDrive to share with a bunch of different people out there.
Yeah, and it's pretty more of a good kill switch than it is to very selectively decide who can see things. If you're just like, no, I don't want anyone to see this anymore, let's just return to the default. That's what that is for.
I think I know what I'm doing after this stream. All right.
Yeah.
Check those out, review them. And again, we have a video that's got a little more details about doing that sort of nuance, checking out who has things, how to share, that sort of thing. And that was from one of our previous live streams, which was OneDrive tips and tricks.
Right.
The last one I want to talk about, this is another one that I got. We did one about how to restore recently deleted SharePoint or OneDrive files. It's a pretty quick process, but again, you need to know how to find it. So if you want to, check out that YouTube video. But I did get a question, and I've gotten this question a lot at trainings because I do, trainings for clients on this exact topic. How do you restore, or can you restore files if they aren't in that recycle bin, if they aren't in that deleted files folder? The short answer is you can't. The long answer is you can prevent it, or if it's a certain thing, let's talk about that. So the long answer is you can do things to prevent this from becoming a common issue. You can set permissions at the top where regular users can't delete files. If that's a concern that's coming around, if it's something that's in your OneDrive, you can make it so that you can't delete files. You can make sure that if a file is altered that you're sharing with someone, you can set up flows or Power Automates that can notify you. We actually talked about Power Automate in another video, which, very cool process. You can also set up third-party backup. So I know that's something we do for a lot of people because, there's that default retention that comes with OneDrive and SharePoint, but you can also have a third-party backup where it's a separate retention. It's going to keep those files as sort of as a backup. And then lastly, if the reason that it's not in the recycle bin is because you didn't technically delete it, you just made changes that overrode it, that we're going back to version history, which is definitely possible. And again, we've got another, this one's a KB article on how to view version history and restore from there. So there are sort of ways. The short answer, again, you can't delete something if it's permanently deleted. The long answer is there are things you can do to make that not be a problem.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's
So
really great.
That's what I got today.
Thanks, Miriam. That's really good stuff, especially the third-party backup. The retention in Office 365 and Google kind of hovers around 30 days. If it's deleted, and if it's gone, it's gone. And
and on both, you can permanently delete them manually, and it depends a little bit on churn. So
there's definitely a good use case for some of these third-party offsite non same cloud disparate cloud backups, but we'll talk about that another day. All right, so let's talk about some of our midpoint kind of review where we are. And one of the things that's really important, we had done, and it's May. We're rapidly approaching that end of, it's weird because you don't think of it this way, but May is kind of the beginning of the middle. If that makes sense,
beginning of the end of Q2.
Beginning of the end of the middle starting. And you really kind of think everything you set off to do, a lot of times I know here for us, we start talking about the new year, October, right? What do we want to get done? What things are important to us? How do we want to get things done? And one of the things that I think is really important, I know Valiant, or I think any of our customers is that you revisit these goals on a kind of regular basis, right? You want to look at them. Are you actually working towards them, or is it something that's like this empty shell of a goal? And exactly. And Justin and I talk about this pretty regularly, right?
Yeah. I know in a previous stream we talked a lot about defining KPIs and having we call it a North Star metric and those pieces. But you also, once you've defined those and started collecting that info and looking at that, you do want to compare the numbers, the data that you're getting versus the progress you're making towards your goals. Because if this is where that check and balance is on those KPIs. It's like, okay, we set a KPI that we're going to track, how many widgets we produce per day, but our business goal is something, else. Is the fact that we are producing those widgets at the rate we said we would driving us towards our goal? Or conversely, is it, hey, we're not meeting the KPI we said we were going to do, but we exceeded the goals that we set for ourselves? And these are ways to kind of revisit those KPIs and determine whether or not they are, whether they're valid for what you want to achieve.
Right. they're not static. It's like
Yeah.
never a
Yeah.
static thing.
Yeah.
And even ourselves this year, we one of the things that one of our big goals this year was to ensure that every customer gets a QBR per quarter.
Mhm.
Right, that's a really important goal that we follow. It's kind of a core metric, and it's really important that a QBR is a quarterly business review. It's basically this great interaction where we get to report to the client like things that we're working on, things that we think are important, find out insight into their business,
Mhm.
and then align their goals to the technology goals they have. It
Mhm.
builds a roadmap, a budget, all the pieces. And sometimes when you meet them, you go in there with an idea which you want to get done, and
Mhm.
then they kind of blow you out of the water. I mean, the class is always like, "Hey, we're moving in 3 months." You're like, "What?"
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's good to know.
Yeah.
it's good. Better to know
Uh,
now than a week before, right?
Yeah.
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 So,
And I like the with the quarterly business reviews, it ties into evaluating those KPIs and those goals, both for it because for us internally that was one of our KPIs and our goals,
right,
but the act of going through those QBRs with a client is helps them review some of their KPIs and goals, and
Mhm.
right,
we don't just limit it to strictly IT. Obviously, we bring a lot of the IT numbers to the table because that's where our focus is, but it can expand beyond that as well and look at the overall goals of the business and how the IT department, IT section of the business can drive towards those business goals.
Mhm.
right. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And the QBRs are a mechanism for tool. So it's all these pieces support it, and
Mhm.
then it's both these metrics and going back and reviewing them and kind of like iteratively working through it is like an important piece of it. So, I think it's a really important piece of it, and I think that so kind of this midpoint, looking at your goals, reviewing, then come back to it. But another thing I think is really important, and something that we think we kind of live and think is important is understanding your marketplace,
Yeah.
understanding your industry's market as well. Like what
Mhm.
you know, so much of what you, so much of what you, and especially in a very specialized industry, you feel like you're in this kind of like echo chamber of your own talking coming back at you because you don't talk to other people, and then you start talking to other people in the industry, you start realizing like almost all the problems are the same at every whatever insert
Mhm.
company type, it's the same
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So and I think that visibility and understanding really impacts your profitability, your efficacy, your employee satisfaction, because
Mhm.
you start realizing that there's a common thread here, right? There's common things
Yeah.
that cause you just not to be perform as well as you can.
Mhm.
And um and just because you may think you have a big market share, but you don't really understand it. That's the other part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know what's your gauge? And this is a good point. And always in the middle of the year is a good point to kind of step back and think about these for a second, and work with your management team, or work with your staff who who are really much closer to the clients, to your people you work with,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
give you back feedback. You're like, oh, I didn't think that. I didn't know that. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
I find
Mhm.
myself weekly kind of like, huh, that's new.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, to bring it to the QBRs again, I mean, we use the QBRs as a tool both for us to help give the knowledge that we've acquired from working with within the industry, with peers in the industry, seeing the industry trends, what things are becoming important, what things are available that weren't. QBRs are a great tool for us to then use that information to help our clients build a process to use those things. So uh, I mean, so actually, we had for prior to the beginning of 2020, done a lot of work that prepared our clients to work remotely, not
Mhm.
because we were anticipating uh, you know anything of
and
2020,
Yeah.
but
right,
because
We
the
knew.
trend, the
No
trend in
one
the
was.
industry was just like, things that allow you
Mhm.
to also work remote are beneficial so that people can work remote. And in
Mhm.
Yeah.
the end, and that was an extreme example, but being aware of those things, and whether or not it's something that every business needs is a conversation for the QBR, but at least to
Yeah.
be able to bring those things to that. And then on the reverse side, because it's a conversation, getting the information from our clients about what things they're doing, what things are important to them, what things are important for their industry, helps us then refine what the IT processes are going to be for them.
Correct. I mean, I think a great example of that is just just a concrete example in the recent years is the amount of security assessments that we end up being asked to do for our customers.
Yeah.
And they're complex, they're very confusing, and they have a potential liability and risk for the client because they may be answering questions that are not accurate. They may be answering them inaccurately.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
we've seen that happen. Justin and I
absolutely.
can look at each other and chuckle about that one over and over again. But because it's and that's a great, and that's once again not to kind of bring it back to the quarterly business review, but that's a great place to say, hey, are you pitching clients that are requiring you to attest to a certain level of security or a certain level of process, and understanding that and helping them prepare for that is a really big and once again, but that's something we're seeing on industry trend as well.
Yeah.
So they're kind of reinforcing, hey, this is what's happening. This is where we have to take the direction for both ourselves and for the clients. So, and that kind of leads into the next part of something that we find as a review point. Like, check your quality. It's it's a really important thing to do.
Yeah.
If your clients aren't happy with you, that's kind of like why we do it in some way.
Yeah.
That's how you think about it.
Yeah.
It's and you really want to make sure that it's that not only looking at the data, but you're getting the qualitative feedback from them. Like, hey, I really enjoyed this interaction with this person, or this made me feel secure, or made me feel good about what I'm working on. Just get that feedback from the customer, and it's hard because you got to ask, and you're asking people to take time out of their day. But I find that for us, our best customers are people who talk to us most and even give us the harshest of feedbacks at times.
Yeah. That's
You know.
you like getting the feedback, even if it's bad, to know that great, this is something that we can fix.
Right.
From there, it's and I mean, different businesses have different ways of gauging their product and service quality as well. I mean, there's the standard, CSAT scores, sending out customer surveys and things, but depending on your line of business, that may or may not be useful. But things like repeat sales might be, if you're selling widgets, if you see an uptick in the amount of widgets you're selling, that's a metric that you can use. If it's how many customers are repeat customers, things, lots of different pieces that you can bring together to build a waypoint marker of how you're performing and how your customers view the products and services that you have.
It's a great time for the conversation with the clients. Like, what's working for them, what's not working for them.
Yeah.
And we try to do that every quarter, but midpoint of the year is a great.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to kind of pause for a second, readjust, because now you're kind of and also the seasons matter. I think time of the year. Summertime. I mean,
people are a little happier.
Days are longer. I mean, here in North America, I should say, and it matters. I think it matters a lot. And I think if you ignore that as people are not automatons. There's outside influences, and they change with the season, and this is a good time to do that with the quality and find out for them.
Yeah. To bring it to the QBRs, because I think that seems to be the central topic we've got. That's, in some ways, that's the easiest way to judge, at least for us, because we're having that conversation with the client. We can straight up ask, like, hey, what's good, what's not good, what needs to be fixed, and get that direct feedback. And not every business has a methodology where that works, but for, at least for us, for a service related business with customers that are on like a monthly retainer, that works really well for us to be able to track that over time and ask and be able to say, like, hey, what's good, what's bad, what should we do better, what should we keep doing.
Yeah, and just to reemphasize what we've been talking about is to make sure that this is a repeated process, because check it, like if you don't check in with your clients a lot, like we do quarterly, or even if you did it, twice a year, at least you're getting updates on things that are being innovated, and you're getting updates on changes in the marketplace, because you do need to adapt to that sort of thing. Every client's different.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we have dedicated VCIOs for that role. Their job is to always have that kind of finger on the pulse of the client, understand what's going on from a business perspective, and then kind of, give the right briefing to the engineering so that it can actually work, right? I mean, and also like a lot of times there's a piece where people may say, "Hey, I just want to do this thing. How can we just do that?" Or that's a good one, because then you say, "Okay, that's what you want to do. We can work that." The thing that's always hard is we need to buy this thing, and you always gotta be like, "Well, why do you want that?"
Yeah.
That's always the question.
Great example of that one. We had a client say, "Hey, can you install an FTP server on our server?" I'm like, "Well, we can, but why? What do you want to do?" And it turned out they were trying to do something that they there was another way to do what they needed to do that was easier, cheaper, faster, more secure, that they already had. So we're like, "Oh, great, yeah." Versus just them saying, "Can you do this?" and us saying, "Absolutely, let's just do the thing." Having that conversation and having the dialogue of what's the end goal is a great way to figure out the best way to do it. And that's the dedicated VCIO is a amazing resource to be able to do that, because they know the customer, they know the people involved, and they can have those conversations instead of just taking the request and fulfilling it.
And it is important to make sure you're on the same page, because you don't just want to say, "No, why that server?" You want to be like, "No, this is, what are your goals? Great, we can help you achieve those goals, and we can do it cheaper, faster." Exactly as you said, cheaper, more secure, but something you already have. So,
Right.
that is important. Like, as we're talking about, customer feedback and all that stuff, it is important to make sure you're on the same page, that you're going for those same goals. We always make sure that we are a partnership is our ultimate goal with clients. We don't want to be like, "You need to have this, you need to have that. I know best." And we don't want them to be like, "You work for me, do this." We want it to be a partnership. We want it to be a discussion. And that's part of the reason why this client feedback, customer feedback is so important. Depending on if you have a service or a product, like, it's important that both ends get out of it positively. It's not a pushback.
Exactly. Also, and unfortunately, not listening to your clients or listening to people's complaints can lead to some really bad events to both. Where they're not understanding where you're coming from, but maybe you didn't explain it really well. And maybe you didn't, and maybe they just don't have a frame of reference for what you're talking about, or conversely, they don't listen to you for whatever reason. And there's a lot of reasons. Yeah.
That's a great segue into the next part, because I've had that all the time where, even as a business owner, if you're going to implement a service or a system and your users don't understand it, like, you might get pushback there. So,
staff training. I mean, that's your thing.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, part of why, training has become so necessary is because you can throw all the great who's it's and what's it, and
the tools,
gadgets and gizmos aplenty at people, but if they don't know how to use them, then I mean, there's going to be pushback. There's going to be people just not using something you paid for, and how do you fix that? So, I will talk about it too.
Worse than not knowing how to use them, not caring to use them because they don't understand why they should.
Yes. And I mean, we talk about shadow IT a lot when people go outside of what you're setting up for them. It can lead to liabilities and other issues that can show up. But if we're talking again from the business standpoint, making sure that if you have proper training, it definitely does have a direct impact on the performance across the business. Can make people more efficient. It can provide better ways to accomplish tasks, make sure people are all, proceeding in the same way. So you have consistent, service and all that stuff.
Well, and even
that's for the benefits. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and like, even more than that, like, you get over the resistance that people have to change when you try to implement new tools. But I've done my own training this year, and it increasing the confidence of your staff, like, where they really feel empowered to do their job and they feel like they really own what they're supposed to be doing. That's a huge, like, boon for any company morale. Like, I got the IT certification just to learn more about IT as a salesperson, funnily enough. But yeah, the confidence that I have in like internal and external conversations now as an employee of Valiant is just a huge benefit. And I think staff training leads to that confidence. It leads to people feeling like they can do their job efficiently. They feel empowered to do that.
And confidence is good for the staffer. I mean, you want
Yeah.
your staff to be happy. You want them to stay at their jobs.
Yeah,
And also,
yeah.
obviously, makes you better at your job.
Yeah, very simple.
Exactly. I mean, and in terms of like the measuring that's a good measure. I mean, it's one that we're slowly implementing. We're still trying to refine it. It's hard. It's simple but hard.
Yeah.
For lack
Yeah.
of better, it's like we should measure how much training everyone's doing.
Yeah, and starting
Okay.
it off is
Yeah.
difficult. A lot of times, you know, you want to be like, okay, make sure you take training. We're glad to help, but if you don't
Right.
give them any sort of like guidance,
Yeah.
like I know Megan, you said you got IT certification. You didn't just get IT certification; you got CompTIA Plus.
Yeah, the fundamentals. Yeah.
So that's something that's really important. If you would just come in and we were like, learn IT,
Right.
but being able to say like, yes, Megan got her CompTIA Plus. She took the exam. She got certs. It's
Mhm.
you know, it is something that that you can feel confident about, but we can, you know, say that to other people too, and
Yep.
it's great.
It's the it's the IT fundamentals plus is what the cert's
Okay,
called.
thank you.
So it's a great cert for someone who's never worked in IT before, who wants to learn like the really hard fundamentals. And you know, and I'll give it my. There was some questions on there. It was Megan asked me, hey, I have some questions. I know she asked Matt, who works with us here, about some questions on development stuff. It wasn't as simple as it you know, some people kind of poo these and they're like, man, this thing's gotten pretty hard. Like they really kind of expect you to have a certain level of knowledge in it.
Yeah.
And
I studied a lot. Yeah.
You study a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you put a lot of effort into that. And I think that if you can really and this career or this work is a constant learning job. It's a knowledge job that never changes. Much like if you're an accountant or you're a lawyer, where you're constantly, if you're a lawyer learning case law, if you're an accountant, every year the tax law gets updated, and you'd be doing yourself and your clients a disservice if you didn't study that thing.
Yeah.
I know I speak to our
Luckily,
accountant.
technology never updates.
No, everything's the same as
no?
Not
the
known
same.
for its changes.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I mean, there's so many people I've worked with over the years. There's never had a basis or a fundamentals in this. You know, even myself, I didn't have it until I got formal training in IT. When I first started my career, I was really lucky. I had a boss that supported me to get formal training, and it, you know, it was a lot of work, but it was great. It is, and I still fall back on that training probably once a week, if not more, because I learned fundamentals.
Yeah.
You know, and fundamentals matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
there's
mean,
a lot of stuff. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So we're talking about IT because that's our
Yeah, that's where we're
industry,
at.
but I think it applies to other businesses as well. You know, learning the fundamentals of that business, learning the processes for that business, and even if it isn't an industry that has like an industry-wide certification process,
Yeah.
building your own something, you know, along the ways that even just is, here's how we do what we do and why we do it that way and what our goal is, and having employees know that. I always think of Matt threw up the one, Subway University. I always think of the if you go on YouTube, you can find the old McDonald's training videos from the 80s and look at those, and they're gold mine for entertainment. But the idea of those things too, where it's not just, you know, hey, go learn how to repair this particular deep fryer, get the cert to do that. It's, here's how we use this particular tool in our environment to achieve our business goal of producing this product and satisfying these customers in this way. And that idea can be adapted to any business.
It's true.
And that's actually a great point. I mean, you can you said mostly jokingly you can find the old McDonald's training videos, but I mean, training doesn't have to be, like you said, like this industry-wide certification with the tests and all that stuff. It can just be ways that you can, you know, push people in the right direction to see the YouTube videos that can explain things, like even just simple things. You know, some people don't really know how to organize their inbox properly, and that can increase efficiency. So, you know, giving people encouragement and time to do that, they can get free training on YouTube. They can get training at our knowledge base. I do have stuff on organizing your inbox, and our YouTube channel. Obviously, at the top, I went over things that we've had that people had questions on because it was relevant to them.
Mhm.
So yeah, plug us all the time, but you can get, there's free trainings available in a lot of places. There's a lot of affordable trainings. And as we were talking before, the return on investment is, hard to deny. It's going to be,
It's,
better
Yeah.
workers, more satisfied workers.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of benefits from that.
and especially for people who have been working in their career for some time, sometimes just learning new skills, it can revitalize them in the job, in the
Yeah.
role,
Definitely.
because you get really you get spicy after a couple of years.
Yeah.
In
You know,
any
you just
industry, yeah.
any industry. I mean, you could love your work,
Mhm.
and if there's nothing new, or you're just doing the same, Willy
Mhm.
Wonka
Yeah.
kind of making chocolate every day, but you don't move you to the from the chocolate to the jelly beans, it gets really kind of
Mhm.
tiresome. I think
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really
now there's new
yeah,
pink chocolate, so we're good.
we're good. We're
Um,
good now. Awesome.
but bringing it back to the
Yeah.
reviewing, this is something that's a bit more nebulous, and sometimes it's harder to record. But there's definitely ways that businesses can do that. I mean, even if
Absolutely.
you just start offering and tracking what's being done before
Yeah.
you start setting like requirements. So it
Mhm.
could be as simple as you're keeping a spreadsheet.
Right.
You're having people self-report what trainings they're doing. You have a list of trainings that people can check off, and they can personally check that off.
Yep.
Or you have like a mentorship, or a
Mhm.
people working with each other sort of way of doing things. If you set that up and you record it, you have a buddy system.
Yep.
That's how you can start on this.
Yeah.
But it is important to start logging it and just keeping track, because then from there you can figure, is this working efficiently? Is there more that we can do? um, or you could even have a full system in place.
Mhm.
I made note that we have our client portal, and there's the option to put in, any of our clients can put in like some ask us to put in their own trainings. We have some that come by default, and you can actually view the logs and see who took the reminder on how to spot phishing quiz, and you
Mhm.
can see, okay, 15 out of our 40 employees took this. We need to encourage them to do
Yeah.
that,
Right.
and you can sort
Right.
of see.
And
Or
actually,
like, you know, 30 of our 40 employees took it, and we've had less phishing stuff. So yay, it's working,
Yeah.
mission accomplished. Well, at
Yeah.
least well, at least for today, you kind of
Because all
exactly.
metrics are that simple. Correlation
Yeah.
always provide causation.
Famously.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. This is great. So we're running out of time,
Mhm.
because I'm looking at the timer. But this is I mean, we keep talking about this for hours. It's
Yes.
I'm such this the training alone is I'm
Yeah.
really passionate about. I think it's such I think it's a game changer for any person, whatever they're working on.
Mhm.
Um, and so, just to wrap it up, there's a important review. Check your goals. Think about your CSAT. Think about your customers deeper. Talk to them. Talk to your customers. Talk to your staff. Find out what the
Mhm.
training things that they think they should be trained on. And thanks for an awesome stream today. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And next week we have a really exciting stream, a very special guest. We're going to have our partner guest from our partner Scouts Security coming with us. We're going to talk about some cybersecurity and some insurance, which is a topic that's become a really hot topic we
Mhm.
see in the marketplace. It's a really confusing product. I mean, I'm no expert of it, but we have some experience with it, because there's so much to it. It's so depth. We just want to talk about some of the stuff that we're seeing from our partner Scout sees.
Mhm.
And if you like this stream, please give us a like. Please just give us a shout out on YouTube or send us a comment. It really helps, and really enjoy doing these with everyone. And
Yeah.
thanks for your time. Thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a great
Thanks,
week.
everybody.
See you next week. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.